Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary invite you into the world of Rex Beach's The Spoilers. We aren't covering one version of this movie. We aren't even covering two versions of this movie. We are talking about the spoilers in total. Movies, books, and even spoofs. Join the gang as we traverse the harsh frontier of 1899 Alaska and stake claim on this story. Let's just hope no one spoils it. In the classic tale by Rex Beach, honest miner Roy Glenister gets swindled out of his gold mine claim by the incoming government official Alex McNamara, and the only person he can depend on is his good friend Cherry Malott. Roger and Quentin debate which version of each character is their favorite, discuss the differences between the book and its adaptations, dissect how each film tells the story in a slightly different way and builds upon the last, and just which final fight scene comes out on top. Well, I'll be a son of a caribou. It's time to start the show. I'm Gala Avary, and joining us now, here's Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary.
Thank you very much, Gala. Yes, this is Quentin Tarantino.
And I'm Roger Avary, calling from the Klondike.
We're back for another exciting episode of the Video Archives podcast, Kill the Bacalov. So, at the beginning of the month of December, we had a big event at the New Beverly Cinema that I was very, very excited, and we all attended. And that was a screening of the 1930 version of the novel The Spoilers. The novel was a very, very popular novel at the beginning of the 20th century, written by Rex Beach. And it deals all about the Alaskan Klondike and the rush for gold there and the makeshift city of Nome before law and order was brought to it and just nothing but wild prospectors and mud and gold and death.
And whiskey.
And whiskey. Lots of whiskey.
And hard-boiled eggs.
And lots of hard-boiled eggs. More in the versions as they got deeper in. I've always really liked this story. I grew up with both the 40s version that has Marlene Dietrich and John Wayne and Randolph Scott. But the first version I saw was the 50s version, which has Ann Baxter and Jeff Chandler and Rory Calhoun. And so I grew up with those versions, and I always knew about the big fight in them. And I always heard that there was this 1930 version with Gary Cooper. And that always sounded really, really interesting. And there was like two silent versions as well. I really wanted to track down the Gary Cooper version. And one of the things I remember in Pauline Kael's 5001 Nights at the Movies, when she gives a capsule review of the John Wayne version, she doesn't really care for it that much. And she talks about, like a lot of people really like the big fight at the end, but that doesn't hold a birthday candle to the fight at the end of the other versions. And I think she particularly meant the Gary Cooper version, 30 version. So anyway, so that always really sounded interesting. So this year, I went trying to track it down to watch it. And I actually brought my agents into it and my lawyer into it to see, well, what's going on with it? And we went to Universal, and Universal goes, no, we don't have it. That's Paramount. And we're like, well, wait a minute. I thought you owned Paramount's movies. You bought them all. Well, we did, except that one. That's the one we don't have. So then we went to Paramount. Nope, we don't have it. And then we went to TCM. And nope, they don't have it either. And so we finally tracked down that the only surviving print is a 35 millimeter print that the Library of Congress has. Now, we were able to track down possibly another print, but we didn't get it for sure on it. But maybe Gary Cooper's estate has a copy of the 1930 version too. But the only one that we know of for sure is the Library of Congress. And they were good enough to lend it to us at the New Beverly. And so we showed it there. We showed it 4 screenings over the course of 2 nights. And I think it was one of the big film events of Los Angeles.
Yeah, all of LA rolled out.
Yeah, all of the cinephiles.
Yeah, all of the cinephiles of LA.
You know, I publicized it a bit, and we printed up flyers and put it out there. And
it was like a who's who at that screening I went to. It's like, oh, there's Larry Karaszewski.
Yeah, there's Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, it was everybody who
Alan
loves
Arkush was there.
The cinema lovers were there. They came out.
Well, the thing is, though, I really, really like this story. And so it was really great to finally see the 30 version. We all got to see it together. And I've actually even read the book
The Rex Beach book?
The Rex Beach book, because I was like so into. I wanted to see, well, how different is it, and what's the deal with it? And so now what we've done is we've watched the 40s version and the 50s version, and we had the excitement of we all went to saw the 30 version together. We would have the fun of talking about it. And so Gala's with us right from the beginning.
Hi, I'm here.
So we can just kind of talk about the different versions. Okay, so this is the back of the 40s version, MCA videotape.
This is the Marlene Dietrich version with John Wayne.
Yes, tape number, Video Archives tape number 2203.
And what a great color box that is. With really fun box art on the cover.
It's really cool. And I love the spoilers. Title treatment is really great too. John Wayne and Marlene Dietrich star in this all-star adventure classic about gold and greed in an Alaska boomtown during the height of the gold rush of the 1890s. Wayne's Ray Glenister is a virtuous ship captain who's been tricked out of his mine claim. Dietrich's Cherry Malott is the town's sexiest saloon girl who must choose between the honest captain and the charming but no good kingpin Alexander McNamara, played by Randolph Scott. The Duke helps her make up her mind by taking on Scott in an all-out fight to the finish in Dietrich's saloon that film critics consider to be one of the most spectacular action sequences ever filmed. Its adventure as wild as the Northwest frontier itself. Black and white, 84 minutes.
So I have a question, Quentin, because I watched the 1914 version of The Spoilers, which is the silent film, directed by Colin Campbell, starring William Farnham, Kathleen Williams, and Tom Santici. Mm-hmm. And then there's that 23 version that has been lost to time. I think maybe the Russian Film Archive has a copy, but I can neither confirm nor deny that. And then we watched the 30s version all together. And then there's the 42 version, which you just read. Mm-hmm. And then there's the 55 version, which we also watched. But one of the big differences between like the 30s version and then the 42 and 55 is that the 42 and 55 version really treat it like it's Cherry Malott's story. Mm-hmm. And the 30s version is really like mano y mano. Is this kind of how it's meant to be? Or
tell us about the book.
Yeah, it's one of those things is sort of like the way Uncle Tom's Cabin was. The Spoilers was such a popular piece of entertainment at the beginning of the 20th century that there was just so many different ways to see it. So a lot of people read it. So they knew the book. Mm-hmm. They read the book. A lot of people read the book. And then they turned it into a big stage production. So a lot of people saw the stage production. So if you didn't read the book, you saw the stage production. It was always coming through town. I was very surprised when I read the book because in today's world, it's the 40s version with Marlene Dietrich is the one that everyone sort of remembers. Mm-hmm. And they made some drastic changes to the storyline. And even the 50s version is as different as the tone is. It's basically just a color remake of the Dietrich version.
And it's also like they're both really about Cherry Malott. And it's from her point. They don't even show the ship in the beginning.
Yeah, I know.
Which is featured in the 1914 version. I assume heavily in the book.
It's a huge version.
Yeah, in the 30s version, it's like almost the whole first act takes place on the boat. It even shows them before they leave. So basically, when they did the 40s version, they took the story that everyone was familiar with, and they basically turned it into a Marlene Dietrich vehicle. And by doing that, they took who is normally the secondary character, even the secondary one of the two female characters involved.
Yeah, she's the supporting usually.
She's the supporting character, and they made it the story about her. It's about Cherry Malott. And the two hunks in the movie, Glenister and McNamara, are just kind of fighting over Marlene Dietrich, and they're the two hunks that are balancing her feminine glow. And then when they do the 50s version, they just kind of do it all over again in color.
Yeah,
and they make her definitely the lead. But in the book, no, Glenister is obviously the lead, and he's obviously the lead of the Gary Cooper version as well, and I'm sure probably the silent version.
Oh yeah, and the silent version, they do show the whole ship sequence, but they don't show like the opening of the ship, like them getting on the ship, which in the 30s version, she's run away from a ship that has like measles or smallpox.
No, smallpox.
Yeah, and she's been on the plague ship, which is under quarantine, and she's escaped it, showing the kind of, not desperation, but determination of people going up into the free.
But also how she doesn't give a fuck about anybody.
Doesn't give a fuck about anybody. You're right. Yeah, she doesn't care if everybody gets sick.
Yeah. So if you know the story from the Marlene Dietrich version, which is how I did before I read the book, then the dynamic that you're very familiar with is the fact that Cherry Malott is apparently the biggest business owner in Nome, Alaska.
She's funding everyone's operation.
Employs everyone.
She owns the big saloon, which sounds like, along with a couple of the mines, easily the most profitable business, even more than the hotel. She seems like she has even a piece of the hotel, if I'm not mistaken.
I think she's a piece of everything.
Yeah, I think she has a piece of everything. And there's all these like grubby old coots out there that she grub staked them, all right, their first claim. Then they go and they spend their money in her place. It's a really great deal. And she's also like employing people all the time. Everybody she bumps into in town at one point worked for her.
Yeah, like at the bank.
Yeah, that was great.
She goes to the gold claim office and she's like, oh, how's it treating you over here in the 55 version? He's like, well, they might be sending me off to Frisco. They're going to send me off to Frisco. And she's like, oh, that wouldn't happen over at the thing. And she's like, that's the only thing
that's the only thing that's not going to happen. And so,
but she's really well connected.
Yeah. She practically runs this fucking town, all right? As she even says, like, nobody's word means more than Cherry Malotte's word in this town. But she's just absolutely positively in love with Glenister, who co-owns the biggest mine.
The Midas mine.
It does seem to be the biggest operation in Nome.
Oh, yeah.
It's hugely profitable. He's
everybody else seems to just be 3 guys or 2 guys and maybe an extra worker and a mule, all right, doing everything. The Midas mine is like the one big gold mine in the area.
It's big enough that Gary Cooper has actually gone back to California
with his business partner.
Probably to do banking or whatever.
Yeah.
He comes back and he's got all these like new duds,
right?
You know, like a suit and everything.
And so the dynamic is there's him, and then there's McNamara, who is the leader of the spoilers. And the spoilers are the bad guys. The spoilers are the people that are spoiling the people's claim. They're claim jumping, and they're spoiling their claim, all right, to this land and to this gold. And they're doing it through a really nefarious situation where he is a government official who has been assigned to clean up the gold claims, and there's going to be a federal judge coming in who will be looking over everything.
And the Gold Commission is coming in.
Yeah, he's a part of the Gold Commission.
Make sure all of these claims are legal.
Illegal.
And with the law comes crime, basically.
And but the thing is, it is a wild open territory, so there is a case to be made that, look, some law and order needs to be brought into this town. So that's the good example of like why you would go along with it.
Yeah, and in the 1930s version, they actually do a really interesting thing where there's like a little tiny shack kind of adjacent to his gold claim.
Yeah.
And someone has left for like months because they've gone back on the ship to get supplies or something.
Yeah.
And they've just left a note.
Yeah.
And they're like, this note is fine. And then the McNamara says, like, no, this doesn't work. Like, this could be anyone's note. And he's like, but back before the law came into town, a note was enough.
Yeah,
we all trusted each other.
And we knew
men's honor and integrity was greater than the law.
We knew that's Snuffy Smith. We knew Stuffy.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's his mark.
It brings more complication because of like, oh, you have to do things down by the book.
But the thing is, this is all a scam.
Mm-hmm.
This is all a scam. The judge is working with McNamara, who's working with the different deputies that they've hired, and even the sheriff is sort of kind of in on it a little bit.
They're all getting paid off.
They're all getting paid off. And the way they tell that story in the 30 version and the 40s version and the 50s version is almost what makes the difference between the 3 different versions. But the part I still haven't said yet is, so there's the dynamic between the McNamara and Glenister with the Cherry Malotte character, but there's a 4th character, the niece of the federal judge.
Helen, I think her name is.
Helen.
And she's a good girl, obviously from a good family. She's a lady, probably even had maybe some schooling. And she's from the East, beautifully dressed. And she arrives in on the boat with Glenister when he's been gone and he's coming back with his partner, who's an old coot in all versions.
Son of a caribou.
I'll be a son of a caribou. So the surprise when I read the book is, in the book, she is the main female character, not Cherry Malotte. Cherry Malotte, the saloon girl, is more of a secondary character. You know, she's almost like Blackie
Yeah, Blackie, who's in the 55 version, he's kind of like Cherry Malotte's right-hand man.
And he's in all the versions. He's in all the versions.
Or left, but he has a different name in the 42 version. I think his name in that is the Bronco Kid.
Yeah, the Bronco Kid. Yeah, okay, yeah, you're right.
So it's Bronco instead of Bronco.
I think it may be just Bronco in the 30s version.
Yeah.
All right? He's her bodyguard, right-hand man, but it's obvious that he loves Cherry Malotte, but she closed the door on him, and there's other guys out there, but he's going to wait them all out. In the meantime, he's going to be like Willie Garvin to Modesty Blaze, and he's going to execute all of her shit. And they usually cast a guy who's a cool actor who has his own little thing going on, so he's strong in that role, and it's almost embarrassing.
It's a cool role.
It's a cool role.
It's almost unbearably cool because like the Cherry Malotte thing, how she's the lead in the 40s and 50s version.
Yeah.
And then in the 30s version, she's not.
She's not, yeah.
And it's just, I don't know.
It's so weird. Yeah.
And who Glenister ends up with in all the versions is also different.
So I was shocked when I read the book. And then Helen, it's all about Helen. And they're fighting over Helen at the end. And Cherry Malotte is just completely a secondary character. I mean, it flipped my brain. So then we watch the 1930 version, and it's that way.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, Helen is the girl in Cherry Malotte, and I actually like Betty Compson a lot, so I was really excited to see Betty Compson playing Cherry Malotte, and she doesn't really have a whole lot to do.
No, it's kind of sad.
It's actually frustrating.
It's frustrating.
It's frustrating the way the end of Starship Troopers is frustrating. Like you feel like, wait a minute, it's not like I dislike that other girl.
Yeah.
But he doesn't belong with her.
Yeah, no, I don't dislike Helen in this, but he shouldn't be with her. It's just that
he should be with Cherry Malotte.
Even though I actually think the final shot of the movie is one of the better shots in the film.
Yeah.
Well, when he's with Helen at the end, and then they kind of turn their back to the camera, it's a really nice moment. I like that. I like that fight, the closing
to
image.
me, the telling moment.
I just wish it was with Cherry.
In the 1930s version is when Cherry and Helen are kind of confronting each other over that they both like the same guy, the same man.
I actually kind of like that scene in every version of the story. That scene's always good.
But it's really frustrating in this one.
But it's very frustrating in the 30s version.
Who's the tough girl.
You want Cherry to win. All right.
You want Cherry to win. And this Helen woman, when she looks at it, it's
Kay Johnson, right?
Kay Johnson almost plays it like, well, I didn't like him that much until now that I know that you like him. I'm gonna turn it on more now.
In the theater, I actually leaned over to Dad and I was like, that bitch.
Yeah, she's like, and I was like, whoa, conniving bitch. She doesn't even like him that much.
But that's what I think they even have a line earlier in the movie.
If he's worth fighting for that much, then maybe I'll stay here and fight.
And it's the way that she almost, this is long before Marlene Dietrich, but she almost does a little Marlene Dietrich, like, like.
But also on the boat when they're going and he meets her, because she's come aboard. She doesn't have smallpox, but she's been on the
She might have smallpox.
She doesn't care, and she's out there getting fresh air or whatever. And then they have this crazy scene where they're like against the water and they're kind of see through.
Oh my god, that amazing water sequence where they're see through because they're using a sodium mat, which is they're using sodium lights to create the matting effect.
But they're also in the beam because you can see the beam. You can see the background on their clothes.
But the way that ocean is going up and down, like it's an Alaska Ocean.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's going crazy. But
visually, it's fantastic.
There's a line where he says to her, "Well, like, what are you going to Alaska for? Like, just like for some thrills?" And she says, "Yeah, pretty much." And so she's basically admitting, like, I'm just going to Alaska to get some thrills. And where does she find them? By battling Cherry for Glenister.
Yeah,
I don't believe that she really, in the 40s version, I believe that Helen really likes Glenister.
No, I do too. Oh, and I love Margaret Lindsay is actually one of my favorite actresses. So it was so great to see Margaret Lindsay play that role. And,
she plays her
I actually wish that's the one version I wish Helen had a little bit more to do because I love Margaret Lindsay so much.
The best part about Margaret Lindsay playing Helen is that she plays her so gently.
Yeah.
And that scene where the two girls do confront each other, like in the bedroom when she's kind of trying to leave. And Helen's like, I couldn't stop them. Like, what could I do? In that line reading in the 40s version, Cherry takes pity on her and she's like, yeah, what could you have done? The kind of woman you are. And then when they do the line reading in the 50s version, Cherry's like, yeah, what could you have done? It's like she's mad at her. But in the 40s version, there's kind of a softness because she realizes like, this is the kind of woman I am and this is the kind of woman you are.
Okay. In my own way, because I'm a big Barbara Britton fan too, who plays Helen in the 50s version. She might be my favorite of the Helens because I like the fact that she's the one that is completely down with the spoiler. She's there to do a job. She is absolutely a spoiler. She's not spoiler adjacent. She is a spoiler, and she did her job.
She's a con woman.
Because in all the other versions, besides the 55 version, I believe, the 55 version, they reveal that like McNamara has brought together these 3 different con men who may have worked together before in the past.
No, they definitely, in that version, in the 55 version, they definitely.
But I don't think they worked with McNamara before. He found that he handpicked them
Right.
to get the killer's row.
Yeah, and so she is Helen,
Which is
on
decidedly different from the 30s version because she's known McNamara for years.
Yeah.
Because they're
I think they're childhood friends.
They're
like
childhood
maybe going to get
friends.
married. She's promised to marry him.
They grew up together.
And in the 42 version, she literally is just the niece of the judge.
She's the niece of the judge. It is actually fun to, even if you spot read the book, you do that, you see the 30s version, you see the 40s version, you see the 50s version. Amongst all those different versions, even though it's jumbled up, you get the story. You have a sense of it. Like, so for instance, in the 30s version, they're as nice to Helen as they can possibly be. All right. You get the impression that she was not really in on it. She was not officially part of the plan she's not a spoiler. In the 40s version, Helen is complicit with what's going on, but she's not necessarily part of it. But she's aware that they're doing it. She's aware that her uncle is screwing, these people. And she's, so she's definitely complicit with it. Now, in the 50s version, she is absolutely part of it. But what's interesting is it's really only the 30s version that shows the Helen part of the plan, which is to constantly talk to Glenister about how law and order needs to happen here.
To manipulate him.
Yeah, and what's going to happen is going to happen eventually. And then, but you're safe. Just trust my uncle. It's all going to be good. If you own your thing, these other people can't have a claim against you. You will win in court, and then nothing will be stronger than that. And this is all going to happen anyway. This is just civilization. Are you a big roughneck or are you civilized?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an entire town of minors and, boys behaving like boys. And she comes in and she's basically like, law is coming and this is something you should. And he's the only one who is convinced of that. Yeah, he sways everyone else.
They make her a character of good faith. She just happens to be unknowingly working with people of bad faith.
Yeah, and I also think it's really cool because when you highlight Helen and her in the 30s version being in good faith, there's a lot more for Dextry, who is his claim partner, to actually be doing because he and Helen become really adversarial. And kind of Dextry's character also
because he's Team Cherry the whole way.
He's Team Cherry the whole way. He's like, what are you doing? Like you've messed with Cherry and like you were supposed to come back with Cherry and now you're not. And then they bring like a new white shirt for Slapjack. And like
I like Slapjack in all the versions.
Slapjack in all the versions is
but
so
the 1930s version is my favorite.
Oh, Slim Somerville. Yeah. Well, he's a really cool character actor, and his fate grabbed the whole audience. Yeah, you heard the whole audience react to his fate.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like in the 55 version, does he succumb to the same fate? Slapjack?
No, he's there at the end. He's there watching the fight.
That's the thing. Like Slapjack lives.
Slapjack lives in the 50s.
There's a few like interesting characters that like we don't really get highlighted in the 40s and 50s version. Like for example, the Jewish shopkeep.
Yeah.
Who I think was a killer character.
He was a fantastic character.
A great comedic value.
And well, he's amazing because the people who really make money during a boomtown are not the miners. And
it's the people who sell the miners mining shit.
Yeah. You know who became the richest man west of the Mississippi was Leland Stanford. He never did a lick of mining, but he sold a hell of a lot of mining pans and hammers and stuff. Like he was a tool guy. And by owning a general store.
You don't make money selling Amway. You make money getting people to sell Amway.
Exactly.
and I love also, because there's like a lot for this. I don't know his name, the shopkeep character's name, but like we have that whole egg scene. I don't know what it is with eggs. I think because eggs are like a priceless commodity.
Eggs are a big deal in Alaska.
They're $3 an egg.
No, it's a matter of no. Only the 30s version does a really good job of selling how ridiculous everything is in Alaska because you have to put it on a boat and ship it.
And only the 30s version mentions that these eggs are spoiled. The eggs are kind of rotten a little bit, but they're still eggs.
I gotta share a quick story on that. So my family, a Jewish family from Eastern Europe that moved to California all the way back in the mid 19th century, didn't go through Ellis Island like most Jewish immigrants did. They actually moved directly to California and moved to like the San Francisco area during the time of the gold rush and set up a general store.
So his family was the general store.
You're that dude.
That dude. Yeah. That guy with chutzpah who's like selling to everyone in mining pans.
I've seen
hammers.
that character in a lot of westerns, but I've never seen him like portrayed so like friendly, right? And everyone kind of likes him.
I love that guy. No, he was clearly like so lovable in the town.
Yeah.
And also,
I appreciated
he's
it.
selling the news is my favorite part because it's like he buys the newspaper for like whatever coins he has and then just really turns it into a huge profit.
Mm-hmm.
They completely show his clever chutzpah and how like he'll, wow, that paper is so expensive. You want that much to buy it? He's like, well, if that's how much that paper's worth to him, I can sell that to everyone.
Yeah.
And it's such a brilliant little plot that the guy comes up with.
Yeah.
But I just love it because it also just proves that it's not a caricature. It was a real archetype of person.
Yeah,
a lot of Jews at that time, like they were not like necessarily mining, but that was kind of their role in like the society.
People, like I said, no, you don't make money by getting gold out of the ground. You get money by selling picks and shovels.
Exactly.
Yeah, to get gold out of the ground. Yeah.
But also one of the things that's like a joke, and again, it's one of those other jokes about the movie that when you see all of them, they all kind of add up. You can take and pick the parts of the story you like.
It's like a Frankenstein.
Yeah, it is a little bit. Because one of the things you learn, Alaska is truly like the last wilderness. And so to get anything there, it has to go on a gigantic ocean voyage for it to even be in Nome.
Yeah, from Seattle.
Yeah,
and there's no pier or anything in Nome, Alaska. It's like you have to take a barge.
Yeah. And it looks really treacherous, especially in the 30s version. That's those are some of the better scenes. There's the scenes.
I looked it up and they built Nome, Alaska in Oxnard.
Oh, good. Well, that makes sense.
California.
No way.
Wow.
Yeah, that was all Oxnard, California.
That's wild.
But the thing about it is one of the special things in the town, the reason why it's the biggest business in the town, is Cherry's Saloon. It's beautiful. It's ornate. It's got wonderful furniture in it.
Imported from Europe.
But that's just that. The place that's the knockout of all of Nome is her apartment.
Her bedroom, her boudoir.
Her boudoir that's above the place. And you have to be of a special kind of gent to be invited up to actually see her boudoir, her apartment. But that is literally furnished with like vases from India and curtains from Paris and furniture from all over the world. It's the most ornate place in the entire
dainty furniture.
Yeah.
And the thing that I get out of this is, and especially in the 30s version, Nome, Alaska, and they describe it like this, especially, through Gary Cooper's Sideways Mouth, that thing of, it's a place where a man can behave like a man.
Oh, it's definitely the last of the frontiers left.
There's no law. It's rough. It's independent, but with strength and integrity, they're ruling over this land. And the movie's made in 1930, which is like a year after the stock market crash. And so this is a time when self-reliance is kind of a big deal. Prohibition was still in effect.
Yeah, Prohibition was
until
still
I think 1933 or something like.
I think you're right.
And so for the opportunity to go to a movie where you can see like bar fights, not only bar fights, but the biggest bar fight
of all time. Yeah,
of all time. You get to see people getting wasted, getting drunk, living out their true independence. Standing on your own 2 feet. No law to tell you what to do. No one looking over your shoulder. No one hovering over you.
At the beginning of the 20th century, one of the most spectacular action sequences that was constantly recreated that people really enjoyed was Liza escaping from the slave traders on the ice floes.
Oh my God, yes.
In Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Yeah.
Whether it be the book or play versions of it, how they sold the ice flow sequence showed the quality of the theatrical production. But that was, as far as like an action set piece of the 20th century, that was that. But the other one right alongside of it was the fight at the end of the spoilers. That was one of the most classic action Donnybrooks, of popular entertainment of that time.
And the statement that they're making effectively about like, here comes the law, but with law and with rules and with, everything getting carved up and made, contractual, comes criminals. I mean, that's what comes with the law. And I think that's a really amazing statement they're making in in all the versions.
Now, the thing about the 30s version is it does the book, but the thing is, it leans into the love story between Glenister and Helen. And that's really kind of what it is. McNamara has the least to do in that version, even though I really like William Sage Boyd. I think he does a really good job. I'm waiting for the fight, all right? Because I really am looking for Gary Cooper to knock his fucking hat off.
And the fight delivers, but I'm sure we're going to talk about that.
But the big difference is it really is about their love story. And more than the book, it has to make her a little bit more innocent.
Oh, and it totally does. Like, for example, when they put all of the soldiers in the shed at the gold claim, and McNamara and her uncle are planning to blow up the soldiers and blame it on
she saves them.
And she saves them. That's not in the other versions.
Yeah.
Like, we don't see that at all. And
they know they have to redeem her to some effect. He has a relationship with Cherry because one, she was his grub stake. Or, she basically underwrote him. Like all the men in that town, he's visited her in her fancy room and smelled that sweet perfumed sheets of her bed. He loves her in their own way, but she's the town madam. She's
It's almost like the scene in the 50s version. It's almost meant to be a metaphor. Is when Glenister shows up in the bar and she's singing a song.
Yeah.
Okay. And she's singing a song about what a shit Glenister is. All right.
I'm not going to make that same mistake again.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. Actually, I like that title for a song. And so the thing is, so she's singing in the club and then he walks up to her and he says, "Oh, I thought since you own this place, you don't sing anymore." "I sing when I want to sing." All right. And it's almost like a metaphor. It's like, she doesn't turn tricks anymore now that she owns this place. But if she wants to fuck somebody, she will. If I want to bring somebody up to that boudoir, I will.
I just love Betty Compson in it because she's like a lot more vulnerable.
She's way more vulnerable. It's not her movie like it is the other girls.
Yeah. And you feel that. And it's like when he's recognizing Kay Johnson's Helen, when he's like kind of giving her attention and Cherry Malotte is there kind of watching and she kind of has to let it happen. And it's heart-wrenching.
Well, here's my problem with it.
I don't want him with Helen. I just don't want it.
Okay, look, if we're in like a movie like The Gold Rush, where we covered, and I had a little bit of a problem between the relationship with her and the tramp, I think, because at some point she just falls in love with the tramp and I didn't believe it because he's the tramp. Okay, in this movie, I kind of feel the same way but like in a different way because he has so much money. He's a jillion gazillionaire. He is the richest man in Nome. It is easy.
Glenister?
Yeah, Glenister.
Yeah, his mind is the biggest.
His mind is the biggest mind. It is so easy just to fall in love with him. It's not like she's sacrificing.
She's looking for a situation.
Gary Cooper, who's as handsome as anybody.
Handsome.
He's handsome, like Elvis first year handsome.
That's what I mean. So it's like she's not giving up anything to be with Glenister in Alaska. She's getting the richest man, the most attractive man. Like she's messing up with Cherry. It's like, I win. It's like,
but now here's but like my biggest problem with Helen in the 30s version is one of the actresses that I've kind of fallen in love with this year and that I've seen 9 of her movies and I've just become head over heels is the actress Anne Harding. And I really like her Anne Harding as a character and as an actress, and I've read a book about her, and I've seen a bunch of her films, and like she specialized in weepies, sad, tragic movies that women paid to see to cry in the 30s. And Kay Johnson, it's obvious that they wanted Anne Harding for that role, or they didn't want to spend the money. So Kay Johnson to me just seems like a poor man's Anne Harding. And she's such a poor man's Anne Harding. All I could do was just imagine Anne Harding in the role. And so it was ruined just because I just kept constantly putting Anne Harding in the role. That might just be me.
Yeah, but maybe with Anne Harding, that balance would have been a little better, and I might have been like pulled a little more.
Well, also her and Cooper are fantastic together because they star in Peter Ebbison together for Henry Hathaway, and they're fantastic together. By making it a love story between Glenister and Helen in the first movie, not only do they make it about that, they don't really make it about the spoilers. It's not really clear the spoilers' whole plan in the first one. I knew what was
100%.
I knew what was going on, but I don't think the audience was really hip to exactly what they're.
I thought it was just the machinations of the law causing all of this frustration. When in fact. The guy's there to fuck him up. He's a thief.
It's a full-on like organized crime conspiracy, but where they're using the law.
Yeah,
they figured out a way to use the law.
The 55 one, I think, does it the best in explaining because
the 55 one, I think
the 40s version does it the best.
Maybe. Well, I think I watched the 40s, but
because we know the 40s version now,
yeah,
they can simplify it in the 50s in a way that makes sense.
But one thing that I liked in the 50s version, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they did it in the 40s version, is that they actually like give several claims back to some of the smaller claims.
It all seems part of a.
That's what I mean. In order so that when we take the big claim.
No, crazy like a fox.
The whole thing is a big shell game.
It's all about getting the Midas claim.
Yeah.
It's all about getting. And so we'll be the nice guy. We'll give Slapjack and Stuffy Pete and Soapy Smith. We'll give them their little claims.
I love these names. They probably wasn't much Soapy Smith back in that day.
We'll give old Soapy back his mine and everything. And so then they'll think we're real good guys. I mean, because it's the whole thing about the 50s version that's really neat. Is you actually see where the bad guys are coming from. One, they're all bad guys. They're all in on it.
And again, they hint that they've done this before.
Yeah, but it's all set up that like, no. We'll even give some of these old coots their claims back. And so it looks like we're playing on the up and up. But we're going to take the Midas claim. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have it for 90 days. So that's a whole plan.
Before the actual judge arrives.
Before the actual judge arrives. So for 90 days, we're going to be able to make $1 million. Or they say like $1.2 million.
And not only that, but they also take the safe and they have his deed in the safe.
Another couple hundred.
I don't think they can take the deed. I think it's about what we can.
For the 90 days,
We'll take the money. We'll take the gold that's in the safe and the money we can make in the next 90 days and we get the fuck out of town.
Then we're gone before
and then they're carpetbaggers. Now they're getting out of town.
Yeah, don't you understand that a skeleton crew could mine $1.5 million in 90 days?
Yeah, the spoilers is pretty much the same title as like the carpetbaggers as far as like what they do. They just have a different method of screwing the people. But they don't do that good a job of explaining the spoilers plan and then the whole criminal organization of it in the 30s version because they kind of concentrate too much on the love story.
And they've made her innocent. So she's been taken out of it and maybe the judge is kind of I don't know. It's like it just feels...
Yeah, he's tainted, but it's still not 100%.
Feels like it's just McNamara.
It does seem
just McNamara.
It does seem like it's just McNamara, but maybe the judge is a pawn.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, he wants his daughter to marry him.
Yeah,
so why wouldn't he want him to become rich?
I like in the 55 version when the one guy who's the judge, quote unquote, who's playing the judge, is having pangs of conscience.
Yeah, he's just all disillusioned. He's on his way to being a drunk.
Yeah, like what have I become?
Yeah. Oh, actually, I actually think the 50s version has the best dialogue because it has really great lines, and that's a good line about that. Well, what's the matter, Your Honor? That's exactly what's the matter. My honor.
Yeah, that's a great line.
But you know what? One of the best lines actually though does come in the 30s version, and I can't. Oh God, I wish I could remember what he says. But when Slapjack dies, his final words, and it's basically like the government.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, you give for the first time. I wish we had video because I like her little Gullet just died, and then cocked her head to the like she died.
Eyes closed.
It's like when Leo pretends dies.
But you're right though because I had not seen the other spoilers versions before we went to go see the 1930s spoilers, and I had not read the book, so I knew that someone was claim jumping because you've talked to me about it. But I wasn't really quite sure about the whole conspiracy of it all.
Okay, so now, when it comes to the different versions of the movies, I think the 40s version is the best as a movie from beginning to end.
Oh, yeah, and Randolph Scott is in it.
Yeah, right.
Like, oh, my God, I love him.
Well, no, and
John Wayne.
No, but there is such a thing about John Wayne and Randolph Scott.
Randolph Scott.
There's such a thing about them being even in a movie together. And they're sharing Dietrich, and then like Randolph Scott playing a bad guy.
That's the thing is he's playing a bad guy, and like in all the movies I've seen, because for me it's the Bud Buttaker movies.
Yeah,
he's always playing
Well,
the
he's never
goody.
plays a bad guy except for this one.
He's always playing the goody, and so it's really cool to see him playing the baddie.
And then it's also great to see Wayne play the heroic character because, like, only Wayne could actually play a role that Gary Cooper once played. He's like and Wayne is still number 2 compared to Gary Cooper at this period of time, even as far as a Western star is concerned. And he's definitely number 2 compared to Marlene Dietrich. He's like the young stud. All right, she's collecting him.
I thought Jeff Chandler in the 50s version, he was kind of reminding me of Gary Cooper. Like,
that's what you said, yeah.
You know what it is? It's just that he's taking on the kind of rough Alaskan patois.
I think the 40s version is the best movie as a standalone movie because it's like the most serious version. There's a seriousness about it. I even like the idea that it plays a bit like neo-noir. It really emphasizes the spoilers' plan. It's about how they're ripping everybody off and how I think it's great that the judge is completely in on it, all right, in the 40s version. I like that he's working with McNamara and they're totally, we're screwing everybody. Yeah. But there is a step-by-step of how the plan works. It's really played for real. Like the way like an organized crime movie, or the Black Hand is doing this or doing that, the way that's played out. And there's a noirish aspect to it. There's a really coolness about the black and white and the world building of creating that city. I think that's my favorite of the cities. That's my favorite of the gnomes is the 40s version.
I also love Marietta Canty as Isabel in the 40s version, who's playing Cherry's handmaiden.
Her maid, she's great.
She's amazing. And that's like in the 1955 version, that same character is there with a different name.
Yeah, and when she's white and she's all British.
She's like an old British
they call her
lady.
Like the Baroness or something.
The Countess.
The Countess. That's it, the Duchess.
Or whatever. But Marietta Canty as Isabel was amazing standout. I loved it.
No, she's one of my favorite supporting characters in the 40s version.
So great.
And she has a great chemistry with Dietrich. You can tell that you can tell those two women really liked each other.
John Wayne. Yeah. In the scene with her and John Wayne.
She actually has a flirty scene with John Wayne that actually really works.
I was like, woohoo!
Yeah.
That was great. And then just like a fun fact, William Farnham, who stars in the 1914 spoilers, is actually in the 1942 spoilers. Yeah, he plays the character Wheaton. I like the Bronco Kid character in all the spoilers. I want Cherry to end up with Bronco. That's just who I am. But I liked Richard
It's Richard Bartholomew.
Yeah,
And I like Richard Bartholomew in it too.
The Yukon, hot spot of the frozen north, wide open and wild, ruled by searing lead and silken legs. Against this lusty, brawling background, Rex Beach's memorable story, produced by Frank Lloyd, comes to vivid, exciting life with this outstanding cast. Marlene Dietrich, Randolph Scott, John Wayne, with Margaret Lindsay, Harry Carey, Richard Bartholomew, in a drama bold as the screen can give.
From now on, things are going to be run my way, and you can start adjusting yourself to that idea.
Listen, you can leave those sourdoughs around like children while you shake them down for their pokes, but I happen to be a man that gets what he wants. From now on, it's you and me.
The last version of the spoilers that I watched was the 1942 version. I had seen it before years ago. And to be honest, like what I remember from it was the fight. But I didn't have the history that you've taught me now about the other spoilers versions. But it's still a pretty frickin' fantastic fight. When John Wayne lands a punch, it looks like he's actually hitting people. I mean, they're either just doing it really well. They're just like at peak, cowboy fight. Peak bar fight ability and shooting things. Or he's really popping people in the face like Steven Seagal style.
Well, he's not really popping people in the face, even though it happens from time to time. But that type of fighting is known as John Wayne, kind of in Hollywood movies.
His hand looks like an iron.
Yeah.
So, having seen this movie before, kind of remembering, it as a John Wayne movie, not really thinking, and a Marlene Dietrich film, not really thinking about it too much beyond that, and just kind of throwing it in with the bunch. Like, I feel like it was another person who saw it, because having seen the other versions and coming at it from this grander perspective of a pastiche of films.
Spoilers, folkloric perspective.
Coming from this, the world of the spoilers, the Spoilerverse. Coming from the spoilerverse.
I really like that term.
I now have first of all, a much greater appreciation, but a way deeper understanding of the 1942 version, realizing that this was a thing, a cultural, sociological, this was a hit book that everyone knew. It helped me understand all of them together.
Yeah.
Every individual movie benefits so greatly by being part of this pastiche, this history, this collage.
It's really interesting that it
of
does.
Other films. They all support each other in a very weird way.
I've seen a lot of movies where the same book has been adapted over the decades many, many times. Three Musketeers is a good example. Yeah. Count of Monte Cristo is a good example. I've seen a bunch of them. I've never seen one that is exactly what you're talking about. Each one really kind of adds to the whole Christmas tree of it all.
There's elements from the book that are clearly iconic moments in the book and that are threads throughout all of them. For example, in each and every one of them, both men grab each other and are pushing on each other's faces. There's little tiny beats that are obviously really important of the book that are keyframes that find their way into each version.
Oh, no.
And watching how each handles the bouillabaisse.
Yeah. At some point, the miners do a full-on stand against the spoilers to take over their mind, and Cherry's got to keep the McNamara guy busy for a while. I mean, it was actually very interesting to go through the exact same story beats, and I was never bored with it. I was actually just curious to see how they were going to do it.
Each one has its own perspective. That 30s version really feels the need to show Helen getting onto the boat and how desperate it is and how she's being chased. It's really exciting.
No, you should actually look. I read it online. You can find it online for free.
Google Books or something.
Yeah, you look far enough, and eventually you'll find somebody who has a PDF because it's public domain, I think.
Yeah.
And having said that, I do think that the 40s version is the most solid. And again, I really like the fact that they emphasize the bad guy team. When you concentrate on their scam, it's really sinister. It's really terrible what they're doing, and you feel so bad for John Wayne's character, because he's really trying to do the right thing, and the law is just constantly rolling over on him. And they also seem more formidable, all right, in the 40s version.
Yeah, Randolph Scott is scary in that scene when they're in the jail and they're in the bank and they're going to storm the bank to get the deed back, and all the tellers have the guns.
Yeah.
And then he lifts his gun and he just shoots Slapjack.
Yeah.
It's
and you have a sense about they've got deputies, and those deputies are going to kill. I mean, it's a genuine army that they have. The bad guys have a fucking army on their side.
Yeah.
And so I do appreciate that noirish aspect to the 40s version. I have to say, and I'm a huge Marlene Dietrich fan, especially Marlene Dietrich at this era. Anne Baxter's my favorite Cherry.
Well, I was just going to say, not only that, I was more attracted to Anne Baxter than any of the other ones. I just watching her awesome costumes.
Oh my God, her costumes. I wanted every single one of them.
Skin tight costumes.
Her costumes, it's like a Tex Avery cartoon where they take a big paintbrush and paint some busty girl. Yeah. They paint a dress on her.
Jessica Rabbit.
It's like somebody just took a big old blue on her boobs.
Yeah, that's the thing also. She's wearing these dresses, and they're all kind of turtleneck lace dresses, but they have these cutouts along her chest that are filled in with nude fabric, so it looks like her boobs are spilling out.
The first time I saw that dress, what the hell am I watching? Then you look at it a second time. Okay, that's not skin. That's that's skin-colored fabric.
It's both sexy and demure at the same time. It's really interesting.
That Total Recall, sexy yet demure.
That's a very attractive combo.
One big difference also, though, just really quick, in the 30s version and the 40s and the 50s is the train sequence. There's no train sequence in the 30s version.
I didn't remember a train sequence in the 30s version.
No, there's no train sequence. I think they kind of...
And that's a big sequence in both of them.
Big enough to get Gala sitting upright.
It's a train collision.
A train!
There's a train crashing?
And also the model work in the 55 one, I love how it's a little tiny model train, and then when they cut to the real life, the carts are all the match cut.
They just obviously cut to another movie. Another Universal movie that had a train crash.
Yeah, find us a train crash.
But when they cut back
no.
Here's
exactly what they did. They took a Universal movie that had a train crash, and then they They matted in some spoiler shit onto another movie.
I liked that, though. I liked the train crash.
I like the train crash because after the train crash, they have like their still set, like their crashed train set.
And
they get all the actors in it and they're like, okay, action. And everybody kind of jumps out of it.
Yeah, but they did that was a good cut.
They sold it.
They sold it.
They sold it as if we had just seen the train crash.
Yeah, no, they sold that.
And that was some great actors doing their work that day.
And I was missing that in the 30s version.
Yeah, I loved it.
But if you watch the 50s version, just expecting to see Marlene Dietrich version in color, you're in for a surprise because it actually has a different tone. It has a different feeling. The thing that the 50s version has, again, remember, we're talking about the 50s. And we're talking about how popular this book was, play versions of this was. So they're working from an idea that most of the people who are buying a ticket probably have seen some version of this story before.
There's been like 5 movies made.
Yeah, and like I said, and the theatrical version was popular, and the book was popular. So there's an assumption of knowledge. You do a Robin Hood story. There's an assumption of knowledge of the tale. King Arthur, same. There's an assumption of knowledge.
There's some baggage that comes along with it, so to speak.
But there's an assumption that you've heard the story before.
Yeah.
And so with that assumption, they actually play around with it a little bit in ways that I actually thought was quite clever. One, it's not just that it's color. To me, it feels like a George Sidney musical Western. Something like the Harvey Girls.
Harvey Girls, yeah. And also all the music in the movie, the score itself is like...
You sound like Michael Polnareff in Lipstick all of a sudden.
Yeah, Michael Polnareff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They kind of know that the audience knows the story enough that to a small degree, and I don't want to make it too much, but to a small degree, they can kind of play the scenes for farce.
Yeah.
They can kind of play it for comedy. And that's their way of getting over this old material, this old war horse that you've seen too many times.
They have fun with it.
One too many times.
They have fun with it.
They have a little fun with it. And if you're a little bit familiar with the other versions, you can fill in the blanks.
The fun of watching these 3 versions is watching how each one pivots in its own way to how corrupt each individual within the spoilers are, whether they're truly black in their heart, like dead in their heart.
Like the 50s version.
Like the 50s version.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other versions where it's like a little bit more, like
the 40s version,
Dad and I were kind of debating if Helen in the 42 version is actually in on it or not.
So I kind of resolved that, yes, she's in on it, but she doesn't ever intend for anybody to die or anything really bad to happen. And when John Wayne is going to be shot.
Is she in on it or is she complicit?
Well, complicit. Well,
I think he thinks that she's complicit. I think honestly that it's like she's just living, and then all of a sudden she discovers, wait a second, this is what my uncle's doing.
I think that they are spoilers. That's the title of it, and there is spoilers is in plural, and that she's one of the spoilers.
Look, she's got a job. She's got a job to do, and the job to do is to make Wayne think she's interested in him.
Yes,
and to talk up the concept of law and order and how it's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen today, it's going to happen tomorrow. And with my uncle, you can trust my uncle.
They're confidence men. Yeah. She's playing a confidence game, but she doesn't intend for violence to happen to kill him.
I think in the 42 version, though, it's the only version of Helen that I truly believe loves Glenister.
I think that's completely true. And it's the only version where I bought the effect that she had on John Wayne.
Yeah, no, I bought it and I thought that like she pushed it forward. And then I think that moment, as I've said, between her and Cherry, where she's like, I couldn't do anything. I can't stop them. I think that Marlene Dietrich has a really like human moment with her because she realizes like, we're just 2 different kinds of women and like, you couldn't, but I can.
Yeah.
And it's like, they kind of come together and she almost takes pity on her in that moment.
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
And in the 52.
Also, she knows she won.
Yeah. No, she won. And in the 55 version,
no, she's bad. Yeah,
and Baxter,
she rubs her nose in it.
She rubs her nose in it.
But because she deserves it, though. She's part.
That girl deserves it. And also, it's like if you try to leave, you're going to leave in a body bag. Like you're going to be leaving in a coffin. Well, I'm going to be the one to wring your neck.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, okay, this sort of happens in the 40s version, but in the 50s version, when they're having that champagne celebration when they get the Midas mine. She's partaking in it. She's having second thoughts. All right, she's having a guilty conscience, but she's still part of the champagne celebration.
So is the judge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, but he's more guilty in the 50s version. Like he's feeling more guilt.
Yeah.
But even in the 40s version, he's still also kind of questioning
And I don't think there's any questioning from the judge in the 30s version, as far as I was concerned. It seemed like he was in on it.
Straight up.
I really, really ended up really liking the casting of the 50s version. I ended up loving Anne Baxter's Cherry. I really, really loved her. And I really like her anyway as a star. So it's really great to see her the full-on Anne Baxter star treatment. This is her movie. And you have Jeff Chandler as Glenister, and you have Rory Calhoun, who I'm a big fan of, I've always been, who's McNamara. And for those of you out there, if the name Rory Calhoun sounds familiar, if you're not hip to all the Western movies that he did, if you're an 80s slasher film fan, then you might remember the movie Motel Hell.
I love Motel Hell.
And he's Farmer Vincent in Motel Hell. Not only is he Farmer Vincent, if you're familiar with that movie Angel, a high school honor student by day, Hollywood hooker by night.
Yeah.
He's the old-time cowboy star that's on Hollywood Boulevard hanging out with the kids. And if you're Sergio Leone fans out there, he was actually the star of Sergio Leone's first movie as a director, The Colossus of Rhodes, and almost played the man with no name in Fistful of Dollars. One of the things that I really got a kick out of the 50s version, along with everything I said about the lighterness of it all, is it gave me a glimpse of another version that could have existed of the movie. And it was through Jeff Chandler that I got that glimpse. Because one of the things about Jeff Chandler in the 50s is he was a white movie star that was extremely popular with Black American audiences at that time. They really loved Jeff Chandler in the Black community in the 50s. There's a myriad of reasons of why they liked him. One of the main ones was one of the most popular movies among Black families in the 50s was of the Eisenhower era was the Western Broken Arrow.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's the story of racial brotherhood and burying the hatchet. And they were really talking about black and white issues, but they were dealing with it through history of Indian and paleface issues. Yeah. And Jeff Chandler played Cochise in it. And he is a stand-in for the Black American male masculinity and experience. But Sam Jackson told me that like his mom was a big Jeff Chandler fan. She saw any movie Jeff Chandler did. And you see that brand of masculinity in Jeff Chandler, the way he walks through the movie. So when I watched the film, I got a glimpse of what a Black 70s version of the Spoilers would have looked like. Because when I watch Jeff Chandler, I just keep seeing Jim Brown. And I keep seeing Jim Brown playing that character. And he's a perfect stand-in for Jim Brown. And if he's a perfect stand-in for Jim Brown, then Rory Calhoun is a magnificent stand-in for Fred Williamson playing McNamara.
Yes.
As if the role of McNamara was written for Fred Williamson from the very get-go.
And who would Cherry be?
Yeah, and Cherry's going to be obviously
it's Pam Grier.
Yeah.
And Helen?
Yeah, and Helen, I would have cast, and I talked to Elvis Mitchell about that, I would have cast, there's a really charming Black actress named Tracy Reed. I would have cast her.
Where's she from?
She didn't do a ton of movies, but the thing that Tracy Reed did then, she was so charming at, they took Neil Simon's play, the way they did Odd Couple, they took Neil Simon's play Barefoot in the Park and they did it as a TV show, but it was a Black couple.
Like a series?
Yeah, it's a TV series.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's Tracy Reed is Corey, the Jane Fonda character, and the actor Scoey Mitchell is the Robert Redford character.
How long did that run? Like a season?
No, only about, actually it was
6 episodes?
No. It played for about a season. But the thing that's actually interesting about it is it played for a season. ABC kept pushing it. Even after it got canceled, they kept playing it in repeats. Mm-hmm. But then in syndication, it was folded into episodes of Love American Style.
Oh, so then everybody's watching it.
Yeah. So then different episodes of it would just show up as Love and the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, Love American Style.
The
what would you call it?
Tri-type anthology.
The film that democratizes everyone and everyone is invited.
So that was who Tracy Reed was. Now, the only other person that I thought that could give Tracy Reed a run for her money, but no, I still think Tracy Reed's better casting, but Rosalind Cash could have been good. Rosalind Cash is the Black girl in Omega Man.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah.
She's like Sidney Poitier's wife in Uptown Saturday Night, and she's in a lot of stuff. But the thing about Rosalind Cash is she was kind of a very high-class actress. She did Shakespeare. She did Joseph Papp Theater Company in New York. So she did a lot of blaxploitation movies, but she was always considered this high-class actress. And that's part of Helen's thing.
And not only that, but it's also...
Rosalind Castleton gets started like doing women in prison movies in the Philippines like Pam Grier would have. Rosalind Castleton would have been coming from a Helen kind of place of prestige.
And not just that, but it's also a prestigious novel.
Yes.
So the material probably would have been really interesting to her.
Oh, so it'd be a kind of character for her.
And it's Rex Beaches, the spoilers.
Exactly.
Okay, now what about a few other characters? Okay, what about Flapjack?
Well, in the case of those guys, I mean, everybody doesn't have to be black. I mean, it is Nome, for instance, in Alaska in 1905.
And in those 70s exploitation movies, a lot of time, there would be non-black actors.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't take place on a black universe. So I would actually say Dub Taylor as Flapjack. You know who Dub Taylor is, don't you, Rod? He's the guy in 1941. They go, oh, he's going to be in the Jitterbug contest. Oh, Jitterbugs, that reminds me.
Jitterbug, that reminds me. Go get them cockroaches out of the flour bags.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So you know that guy, right?
I know that guy's lines in 1941 intimately.
Okay. So that guy, Dub Taylor, would be my choice for Flapjack. And then for his... Stay with me here, because we're talking about 76, 77 of doing this black version. I'll go for George Kennedy as Destry.
Oh.
76, 77 version of George Kennedy. He's getting hot under the collar about what's going on. He's partners with Jim Brown.
Yeah.
They started the mine together.
That's a really good casting, especially. And I like that
he's a hothead.
I like that you're bringing George Kennedy back into it because he's one of our leading men this season.
And George Kennedy would absolutely have done that version of the movie.
And also, he's so big and beefy and strong.
Yeah, he's big and gregarious.
You can totally imagine that he would not let the law push him around.
He's enough of a man to be partners with Jim Brown.
Well, and also, George Kennedy is best when he's belligerent, when he's enraged and out of control. And that's when that character.
And that's that character.
That's when Destry is.
he's gonna take that gun and I'm gonna solve things my way.
Yeah,
and Cherry's like, calm down.
Calm down. Let's go to the lawyer.
Calm down. There's he's in that guy's pocket. That's why we're gonna go to the other one.
Now, what about my favorite character, either the Bronco Kid or Blackie?
Okay, William Smith is Blackie.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Now you're talking.
It's also good because I want to see William Smith and Pam Grier get together, and that's my barometer of Blackie. Because if he can't have her, no man can.
Yeah. Exactly. That's good. I really like that idea of a movie. Okay. So now that got me thinking. What if same era, the Jim Brown version? Because I really like Jim Brown as Glenister.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So in the Jim Brown is a Jim Brown movie, not necessarily a black movie. I would say Stella Stevens.
Really?
As Cherry Malotte. All right. One, because she's great playing this kind of character. She's one of the 70s actresses I could actually see giving Ann Baxter a run for her money in the Ann Baxter vivacious department. Mm-hmm. But also, her and Jim Brown had a special chemistry in Slaughter that he never had with any other actress. I think that there's a neat aspect about that. And even though this is slightly against type, because part of the thing about McNamara is he's normally a leading man, but this guy was also a leading man in some movies. I go back to one of my earlier castings before. I think Fred Williamson is a fantastic McNamara in this version with Stella Stevens and him having the big fight with William Smith and Jim Brown having the big fight at the end. Yeah. I think that's really cool. And I would keep my Flapjack and my
keep them all. Yeah.
Blackie would have to change.
Would he be the Bronco Kid in this version instead?
Maybe he should be. Yeah. Maybe he should be. He should be the Bronco Kid. Oh shit! I know exactly who. The fucking Elvis guy from Train to Kill. You know who I mean, right?
I don't know his name, but...
Steven Sandor.
Oh, Steven Sandor, yes, of course.
Yeah. I told you that time I met him. I met him I saw him at the Del Mall walking down one time, and I went to say hello. I go, "Are you the guy from Train to Kill?" Yeah, I can't talk to you right now.
Wow.
Okay, well, no, it wasn't so bad. No, it was actually, he turned around, he felt bad. And he turned around, "I'm sorry, I just can't deal with you right now. I'm sorry."
You know what? That's an appropriate response, though, because just because someone's been in something never means that like they have to give you time. But that was a kind decline.
Well, also, you never know what he's going through in that moment.
No, I mean, he could have been like, you've got 3 months to live for all I know.
Exactly. His wife just told him, I'm leaving you.
He could have had explosive diarrhea and needed to find the restroom.
Yeah, exactly. That's
I gotta take a piss.
Any of the above, or any other.
Well, I've got even another version.
Oh my God, you have 3. So we just covered 3 versions of the spoilers, and you have 3 versions.
Hold on a second.
Of the
okay,
spoilers.
you've made a 1970s version. Are you talking about another decade?
No.
You're keeping it. Are you allowed to make 2 black versions of the spoilers in the same decade?
You'll see how I'm splicing my bean pod. Okay. All the seeds are in their own proper pocket.
We shall see.
Okay, so there's the black version, so that's its own bean. All right. And then there's the Jim Brown, but not necessarily black version. That's its own bean and its own little pod. And the third pod is the CBS TV movie adaptation of the spoilers that they do at the exact same time period in the 70s.
Is it a backdoor pilot?
No, it's not a backdoor pilot.
No, they're just making the spoilers.
No, it's just a famous book.
They're doing like the ABC thing of doing quality.
Not ABC. That would be movie of the week. No, this is CBS or NBC. This is like the whole night is Thursday is, the spoilers. Rex Speeches, the spoilers. The NBC special presentation. All right. So same era, 76, 77. Angie Dickinson.
Yeah, I see that right away.
Is Cherry.
That's actually a good reason to do it.
It's almost the reason to do it. Like the Dietrich version. It's an Angie Dickinson vehicle.
Angie Dickinson has the idea after seeing Dietrich, and then she floats it to the studio, and they're like, yes.
Michael Parks is Glenister.
Okay, right.
John Saxon is McNamara.
Yes.
That's a good version, huh?
Yeah.
For that version, have you thought of like the Helen, the Dextry, and the Bronco Kid of it all?
Yeah, okay. I haven't thought about the Bronco Kid of it all, but the Helen, and they'd have to make her part a little bigger because she's a superstar too.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's perfect casting for Helen. Lindsay Wagner.
Oh, yeah. I love Lindsay, the Bionic Woman.
Yeah, Lindsay Wagner. Because she's classier.
And she's a TV movie. She's not gonna
But she's a superstar on TV.
She's still a superstar, but Angie Dickinson would that would be
no. They would have to make the Lindsay Wagner character comparable. It would still Cherry would still be the boss, would still be the lead role.
But it would be a combination though, kind of the 1930s version and then the 42 version kind of together, where the ladies have kind of more substance.
Exactly.
What about like a late 80s, early 90s version? Is it just
everybody's so boring? It's just not worth it.
You're just not into it. People have forgotten about the spoilers by then.
You can't lift it up with a crane, all right? See, that's the thing. Is like these actors in the 70s. That was It was exciting coming up with 3 different versions with all those guys.
Yeah.
To hear the rest of this episode, including discussions of 2 more movies and our award winners, sign up for the Video Archives Patreon. You'll get access to full Video Archives episodes, the Video Archives After Show, exclusive merch, and more. Head on over to patreon.com/videoarchives to subscribe today. The Video Archives podcast is hosted by Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary and produced by Josh Richmond and Gala Avary. Find out more about the show and get Video Archives merch at videoarchivespodcast.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Video Archives and on Instagram at Video Archives Pod.